The USS Defiance moved through the dark space between stars like a silver needle threading through black cloth. Commander Jake Martinez stood on the bridge, watching the screens that showed nothing but empty void ahead. His ship carried 200 people, all looking for new worlds to call home. "Sir, we're picking up something on the long-range sensors," said Lisa Chun from the pilot's seat. Her fingers danced across the controls as she tried to get a clearer picture of what they had found. Jake walked over to look at her screen. 3 dots appeared, moving in formation toward their ship. They were still far away, but getting closer fast. "Any idea what they are?" Jake asked. Carlos Rodriguez looked up from his engineering station. "They're big, Commander. Much bigger than our ship. And they're using some kind of power source I've never seen before." Dr. Amanda Foster, the ship's expert on alien life, came to the bridge. She had been studying the readings from her lab below. "These ships don't match any design in our database. I think we might have found our first alien contact." Jake felt his stomach tighten. They had always known this day might come. Humans had spread to many star systems, but they had never met another intelligent species before. Now it looked like that was about to change. "Open a channel," Jake ordered. "Let's try to talk to them." Lisa worked her controls, but shook her head. "They're not responding to any of our signals, sir. But they're definitely scanning us." The 3 alien ships came closer. On the main screen, they could see them clearly now. They were shaped like long triangles, with smooth silver surfaces that reflected the light of distant stars. They were beautiful and scary at the same time. "They're moving to surround us," Carlos said. His voice was steady, but Jake could hear the worry underneath. "All stop," Jake commanded. "Let's not give them any reason to think we're hostile." The Defiance came to a halt, floating in space as the 3 alien ships took positions around them. For several minutes, nothing happened. Then one of the alien ships moved closer, and Jake could see small craft leaving its landing bay. "Looks like they want to come aboard," Lisa said. Jake nodded. "Dr. Foster, I want you to stay on the bridge and monitor everything. Carlos, come with me to the docking bay. Lisa, keep the engines ready, just in case." The small alien craft attached itself to the Defiance's docking port with a soft clang that echoed through the ship. Jake and Carlos waited in the docking bay. As the airlock cycled through its opening sequence, the first alien to step through the airlock was tall and thin, with blue-gray skin and large black eyes. It wore a uniform that looked like it was made of the same silver material as their ships. Behind it came 4 more aliens, all carrying what looked like weapons. The lead alien spoke in a voice that sounded like music mixed with static. A small device on its chest translated the words into English. "I am Fleet Commander Thaxel of the Zephyrian Empire. You will identify yourselves and explain your presence in our territory." Jake stepped forward and kept his hands visible and empty. "I'm Commander Jake Martinez of the human vessel Defiance. We're explorers looking for new worlds to colonize. We didn't know this was your territory." Thaxel's large eyes studied Jake for a long moment. "Humans, we have not encountered your species before. You will provide us with your navigation data and submit to inspection." "I'm sorry, but I can't do that," Jake said calmly. "Our navigation data includes information about human colonies and trade routes. I'm not authorized to share that information with unknown parties." The other aliens behind Thaxel shifted, and Jake noticed their hands moving closer to their weapons. But something in Jake's voice, or maybe the way he stood, made them pause. "You refuse?" Thaxel asked. "Do you understand what happens to species that refuse the Zephyrian Empire?" "I understand that you're used to getting your way," Jake replied. "But humans don't submit easily. We've survived ice ages, world wars, and the destruction of our home planet's environment. We're still here because we learned to adapt and overcome." Carlos stepped up beside Jake. "Commander, I'm reading more ships approaching." Looks like they called for backup. Jake didn't take his eyes off Thaxel. How many? 12 more ships, sir. All bigger than the ones already here. Thaxel made a sound that might have been laughter. Your single ship against 15 of ours. You cannot win. You're probably right, Jake said. But you're making the mistake if you think we're just going to roll over and give up. Humans have a saying, it's not the size of the dog in the fight, it's the size of the fight in the dog. Something in Jake's calm tone seemed to disturb Thaxel. The alien commander had clearly expected fear, begging, or immediate surrender. Instead, he was facing a human who talked about war and survival like they were everyday topics. You speak of violence as if it means nothing to you, Thaxel said. Violence means everything to us, Jake replied. That's why we're so good at it. When you've spent thousands of years fighting each other, fighting nature, and fighting to survive, you learn things. You learn to be creative. You learn to never give up. And you learn that sometimes the best way to avoid a fight is to make sure the other guy knows exactly what he's getting into. Dr. Foster's voice came over Jake's communicator. Commander, I'm picking up some interesting readings from their ships. Their technology is advanced, but it's old, very old. Like they haven't upgraded anything in centuries. Jake nodded slightly, filing that information away. He looked back at Thaxel. Commander, I think we got off on the wrong foot. How about we start over? You're clearly in charge here, and I respect that. But humans are new to this part of space. Maybe we can work something out that benefits both of us. Thaxel studied Jake for another long moment. Something in the human's eyes was different from other species the Zephyrians had encountered. There was no fear, no desperation. Just a calm certainty that was somehow more unsettling than any threat could have been. We will consider your proposal, Thaxel said finally, but understand this, human. The Zephyrian Empire has ruled this sector for 3,000 years. We have seen species rise and fall. You are not the first to believe you are special. Maybe not, Jake said. But we might be the first to be right about it. 3 days after the first meeting, Dr. Elena Vasquez sat across from Fleet Commander Thaxel in a conference room aboard the lead Zephyrian ship. The room was large and cold, with walls that glowed with a soft blue light. Elena had been chosen to lead the diplomatic talks because she understood how minds worked, both human and alien. Your species interests us, Thaxel said through his translator device. You do not behave as other races do when they meet us for the first time. Elena smiled and poured herself tea from a small container she had brought. Most species you meet are probably scared. Humans get scared too, but we've learned to work through it. We've had lots of practice. Practice? Thaxel leaned forward. His large black eyes reflected the room's blue glow. Oh yes, Elena said casually. We've been scaring ourselves for thousands of years. Wars, diseases, natural disasters. About a century ago, we almost destroyed our entire planet with nuclear weapons. Then we had climate change that killed millions. But we survived all of it. Thaxel's head tilted in a way that showed confusion. Your people fought wars with weapons that could destroy worlds? Not the whole world, just most of it, Elena corrected. We had enough nuclear weapons to kill every person on Earth several times over. Countries pointed these weapons at each other for decades. Everyone knew that using them would mean the end of civilization, but we kept building more anyway. That is madness, one of Thaxel's advisors said. Elena shrugged. Maybe, but it taught us some important things. It taught us that we could survive anything if we worked together. It also taught us that the most dangerous enemy is often yourself. While Elena talked with the Zephyrians, something was happening across their empire that they didn't know about yet. Deep space monitoring stations were picking up signals that shouldn't exist. Human ships were appearing in star systems that were supposed to be empty. On the planet Zeftar, the Zephyrian homeworld, Admiral Kexan stared at reports coming in from across their territory. In the past week, 37 different human ships had been detected in 15 different star systems. They weren't invasion fleets or military vessels. They were exploration ships, research vessels, and colony transports. How is this possible? Admiral Kexan asked his staff. The humans claim they just discovered us 3 days ago. How do they already have ships spread across half our empire? His chief intelligence officer, Commander Veltar, pulled up a star map on the main screen. Red dots showed where human ships had been spotted. Sir, our analysis suggests these ships have been traveling for months, maybe years. They didn't just leave human space. They've been out here for a long time. Back on the conference ship, Elena was still talking about human history. After the nuclear age, we had what we called the climate wars. The planet got too hot. The ice caps melted, and billions of people had to move to new places. Countries fought over water and food. It lasted about 40 years. Your species survived a planetary climate disaster? Thaxel asked. Barely, Elena admitted. We lost about 2 billion people. Entire cities were abandoned. But the survivors learned to build better, to work together more efficiently. We developed new technologies to fix the damage we had caused. She paused to take a sip of her tea. That's when we really started reaching for the stars. We knew we couldn't put all our eggs in one basket anymore. We needed backup planets. Thaxel was quiet for a moment. How long ago did your people begin? Space travel? Serious space travel? About 150 years ago. We've been exploring and colonizing for about a century now. A century, Thaxel repeated. In 1 century, you spread to multiple star systems. 12 systems so far, Elena said. Though that number keeps growing. We're pretty good at building ships and finding habitable planets. At that moment, Thaxel's communication device beeped with an urgent message. He read it quickly, and Elena could see his blue-gray skin getting paler. Excuse me, Thaxel said. I must speak with my superiors. After Thaxel left, Elena was alone with 2 Zephyrian guards. She continued sipping her tea and looking out the window at the stars. She seemed perfectly calm, as if she were sitting in a park instead of on an alien warship. 20 minutes later, the door opened again. This time, it wasn't just Thaxel who entered. A taller alien in a more elaborate uniform came in with him. This is Supreme Admiral Zethel, Thaxel said. He commands all Zephyrian forces in this sector. Elena stood and nodded politely. Admiral. I'm Dr. Elena Vasquez. Dr. Vasquez, the Supreme Admiral said, we have detected many human ships in our territory. Ships that have been traveling for months or years. Can you explain this? Elena tilted, her head as if thinking. Well, Admiral, humans have been exploring this part of space for quite a while. We tend to spread out when we're looking for new homes. It's safer that way. Safer? Supreme Admiral Zethel asked. If something happens to one group, the others can continue on. It's basic survival strategy. We learned it the hard way back. On Earth, just then, another urgent message came through. Supreme Admiral Zethel read it, and his large eyes grew even wider. What is it? Thaxel asked. Long-range sensors have detected a large human fleet approaching the Kepler system. They're requesting permission to establish a colony. Elena looked interested. Oh, that would be Admiral Patricia Stone. She's probably bringing the new terraforming equipment. We've been planning that colony for about 2 years now. 2 years? Supreme Admiral Zethel said. But you claim this is first contact. First. Official contact, Elena corrected. We've been observing and exploring for much longer. We like to be thorough before we introduce ourselves. It prevents misunderstandings. The 2 Zephyrian officers looked at each other. They were beginning to realize that their first meeting with humans hadn't been the beginning of human presence in their space. It had been humans deciding it was time to say hello. Dr. Vasquez, Supreme Admiral Zethel said carefully, "Exactly. How long have humans been in Zephyrian space?" Elena smiled. "Well, that depends on how you define Zephyrian space. We've been exploring this region for about 15 years now. We've mapped most of the star systems, cataloged the planets, and identified several good locations for colonies." 15 years, Thaxel whispered. "We're very quiet when we want to be," Elena said. "It's another thing we learned from our wars. Sometimes the best way to avoid conflict is to understand your neighbors before they know you exist." Another message came through. This one made Supreme Admiral Zethel's skin turn almost white. "What now?" Thaxel asked. "Our archaeologists on Kepler 442b have found something. Human artifacts. They're thousands of years old." Elena raised her eyebrows. "Oh, you found those? We were wondering what happened to the first expedition. That was before we developed reliable faster-than-light travel. Poor guys probably got stranded." The room fell silent. The Zephyrians were starting to understand that their encounter with humanity wasn't first contact at all. It was the moment when humanity had decided to let them know they had new neighbors. "How many human ships are in our territory right now?" Supreme Admiral Zethel asked quietly. Elena thought for a moment. "I'm not sure of the exact number. We don't really think of it as your territory, you see. We think of it as the frontier. But if I had to guess, probably several hundred ships by now." The two Zephyrian commanders looked at each other again. For 3,000 years, their empire had been the dominant force in this region of space. Now they were learning that another species had been quietly moving in around them, and they hadn't even noticed until the humans decided to introduce themselves. "I think," Elena said gently, "we need to have a longer conversation about how our peoples are going to share this part of space." 1 week after the diplomatic meetings, the Zephyrian High Council made their decision. They sent a message to all human ships in their territory: stop expanding immediately and submit to Zephyrian oversight, or face the consequences. Captain Nicole Parker received the message while her research ship, the USS Explorer, was studying a gas giant in the Vega system. She was a quiet woman with short brown hair and calm blue eyes. Her ship was small compared to the Zephyrian vessels, but it carried some of the most advanced scanning equipment humans had ever built. "Captain," her communications officer called. "Out, we're getting a response demand from the Zephyrians. They want us to acknowledge their ultimatum." Nicole smiled slightly. "Open a channel to all Zephyrian ships in this system. I want to send them something interesting." She worked at her console for a few minutes, then nodded to her crew. "Send this data package to the Zephyrian fleet commander." Light years away, Admiral Vexul received the transmission aboard his flagship. When he opened the file, his face went pale. The data showed detailed scans of every Zephyrian military base in the sector. The scans included information about their defensive shields, weapon placements, and even the number of soldiers stationed at each location. How did they get this? Admiral Vexul asked his intelligence officer. "Sir, these scans show details that should be impossible to obtain. Our bases are protected by the most advanced shielding in the Empire. No ship should be able to scan through them." Admiral Vexul stared at the data. "Send this to High Command immediately, and find out how many human ships are in our territory right now." The answer came back 3 hours later. The number was much higher than anyone had expected: over 800 human vessels scattered across Zephyrian space. They weren't hiding anymore. Meanwhile, on the planet Rigel Prime, Lieutenant Colonel Steve Watson was conducting a training exercise with his Marine unit. The Zephyrians had asked to observe human military tactics, thinking it would help them understand their new neighbors better. What they saw confused and frightened them. Human soldiers didn't fight like Zephyrian warriors. Zephyrian combat was formal and organized with clear rules and honorable traditions. Human combat looked like organized chaos. "Watch this," Steve told the Zephyrian observers as his troops moved through a mock battle scenario. "Johnson, your squad is outnumbered 3-1. "What do you do?" Sergeant Johnson grinned. "We don't fight fair, sir." His squad immediately split up, used the terrain to their advantage, and attacked from 6 different directions at once. They used tricks, traps, and tactics that seemed to ignore all the rules of proper warfare. "Your soldiers fight without honor," the Zephyrian military observer, Commander Yek-Style, said. Steve shrugged. "Honor is something you worry about when you have the luxury of choice. When you're fighting for survival, you use whatever works. We've been doing this for thousands of years." He pointed to his troops, who were now demonstrating urban combat techniques. "See how they adapt? Each situation is different, so they change their tactics on the spot. No rigid formations, no predictable patterns. Just whatever gets the job done." Commander Yek-Style watched as human soldiers improvised weapons from their surroundings, used abandoned vehicles as cover, and communicated through hand signals that seemed to change meaning every few minutes. "How do they coordinate without proper command structure?" he asked. "Every soldier is trained to think for themselves," Steve explained. "If the officer gets killed, the sergeant takes over. If the sergeant gets killed, the corporal takes over. We don't rely on a single chain of command because chains can be broken." The demonstration continued for 2 hours. By the end, Commander Yek-Style looked deeply disturbed. "Your people fight like predators." "We are predators," Steve said. "Simply, that's what kept us alive when we were evolving. We learned to hunt in packs, to use tools, to adapt to any environment. Those instincts don't just disappear because we built spaceships." Across the galaxy, Captain Maria Santos was having her own encounter with Zephyrian forces. Her colony ship, the USS New Hope, was carrying 15,000 colonists to establish a new settlement on Kepler 186F. A Zephyrian fleet had moved to block their path. "This is Admiral Kivil of the Zephyrian Imperial Navy," came the transmission. "You are ordered to turn back immediately. This system is under quarantine by order of the High Council." Maria responded calmly. "Admiral, I appreciate your position, but we have a legitimate claim to this system. We've been planning this colony for 3 years. You have no right to claim anything in Zephyrian space." "With respect, Admiral, we were here first. Check your own records. Our survey team mapped this system in 2384. Your people didn't even know it existed until last month." Admiral Kivil reviewed his files and found that the human was right. Zephyrian records showed no knowledge of this system until very recently. "That may be true," he said, "but the Zephyrian Empire claims all systems in this sector." "Claims are one thing," Maria replied. "Ability to enforce those claims is another. Would you like to see what our colony ship is capable of?" Before Admiral Kivil could respond, scanners detected something impossible. The human colony ship wasn't just carrying people and supplies. It was carrying an entire industrial complex, complete with factories, power plants, and terraforming equipment. "Captain Santos," Admiral Kivil said carefully, "your ship appears to be carrying enough equipment to build a complete civilization." "That's correct," Maria said. "We don't just colonize planets, Admiral. We transform them. Within 6 months, the system will have orbital habitats, asteroid mining operations, and a full industrial base. Within a year, it will be producing its own starships." The Zephyrian Admiral stared at his scanner readings. "You can build all of that in 1 year? We've done it before. 12 times, actually. Humans are very good at building things quickly when we need to." While these confrontations were happening, Dr. Kevin Taylor was completing his report on Zephyrian society. His team had been studying the aliens for months, learning about their culture, psychology, and biology. "The Zephyrians are interesting," Kevin told his research team aboard the USS Discovery. They're highly intelligent, but they've been the dominant species in this region for so long that they've become complacent. They haven't faced a real challenge in centuries. What about their military? Asked Dr. Rachel Kim, his assistant. Impressive technology, but outdated tactics. They fight wars the way humans did 1,000 years ago. Formal battles, predictable strategies, rules of engagement that both sides agree to follow. Kevin pulled up his analysis on the main screen. They also have some interesting biological weaknesses. Their eyes are adapted for their homeworlds. Light spectrum. Certain frequencies can cause them serious discomfort. Their hearing is very sensitive, which means loud noises can disorient them completely. Are you suggesting we could defeat them in combat? Dr. Kim asked. I'm suggesting we wouldn't need to fight them at all, Kevin replied. They're used to dealing with species that think like they do. We don't. That's our advantage. He showed them psychological profiles of various Zephyrian leaders. They expect other species to follow the same social patterns they do. Hierarchical command structures, formal diplomatic protocols, predictable responses to threats. Humans don't work that way. What do you mean? We're creative problem solvers. When faced with a challenge, we don't just try harder using the same methods. We find completely new approaches, we improvise, we adapt. We think outside their box. Kevin's report was sent to all human commanders in the region. Within hours, every human ship knew exactly how to deal with Zephyrian psychology and biology. The information spread through the human fleet like water through a sponge. Back on the flagship, Admiral Vexul was reading reports from across the Empire. Human ships were appearing in every system. They weren't invading or attacking, but they were making their presence known in ways that couldn't be ignored. Sir, his communications officer said, we're receiving a transmission from the human diplomatic vessel. They want to arrange another meeting. Which ship? The USS Valkyrie. Sir, it just arrived in our home system. Admiral Vesul felt a chill run down his spine. Our home system? How did they get past our border defenses? They didn't go past them, sir. They went through them. Our sensors never detected their approach. The Admiral looked out at the stars and realized that the Zephyrian Empire was facing something it had never encountered before, a species that was better at war than they were, even though the war hadn't officially started yet. Supreme Admiral Kethfer commanded the most powerful battle fleet in Zephyrian history. 300 warships, each one capable of destroying entire planets. He had been ordered to the Wolf 359 system to make an example of human expansion. The High Council wanted the galaxy to see what happened when someone challenged the Zephyrian Empire. Admiral, his fleet communications officer reported, we have arrived at the target coordinates. Long-range sensors detect 5 human vessels. Only 5? Admiral Kethver asked. He had expected a large human fleet to defend their newest colony attempt. Are you certain? Yes, sir. 4 small ships and 1 medium-sized vessel. Total crew complement appears to be less than 2,000 humans. Admiral Kethver felt disappointed. He had wanted a glorious battle to broadcast across the Empire. Instead, he faced a tiny human force that would be destroyed in minutes. Open a channel to all ships in the system, he ordered. I want everyone to hear this. The main screen lit up with the image of a human captain. The man had gray hair and calm brown eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform without many decorations. I am Captain Luke Rodriguez of the USS Frontier. Human said. You must be the Zephyrian fleet we were told to expect. I am Supreme Admiral Kethver. You are ordered to surrender immediately and abandon this system. If you comply, your lives will be spared. Captain Rodriguez smiled slightly. I appreciate the offer, Admiral, but we can't do that. This system belongs to humanity now. Captain, you face 300 warships with only 5 vessels. Surely you understand the mathematics of this situation. I do, Rodriguez replied. The math is definitely interesting. Admiral Kethver waited for the human to surrender, or at least show some fear. Instead, Rodriguez turned to someone off-screen. Tony, are the gravity anchors in position? A voice answered from somewhere on the human ship. All set, Captain. Karen has the star mapped and ready for adjustment. Admiral Kethver felt confused. What are gravity anchors? What adjustment? Captain Rodriguez looked back at the screen. Admiral, have you ever seen a star change color? Before Admiral Kethver could answer, something impossible happened. The star at the center of the Wolf 359 system flickered. Its yellow light turned orange, then red, then back to yellow again. How did you do that? Admiral Kethver demanded. We moved some equipment near the star's surface, Rodriguez explained casually. It's amazing what you can do with controlled magnetic fields and a few thousand tons of specialized materials. On Admiral Kethver's flagship, the science officer was running frantic calculations. Sir, the humans have somehow altered the star's energy output. The temperature change should have taken millions of years to occur naturally. Can they make the star go supernova? Admiral Kethver asked quietly. Unknown, sir. But if they can manipulate stellar output, they might be able to trigger a collapse or explosion. Captain Rodriguez continued talking as if he were discussing the weather. Of course, we don't usually mess with stars unless we have to. It's much easier to simply relocate problematic objects. Relocate? Admiral Kethver asked. Tony, show the Admiral what we did with Asteroid Cluster 7. On their screens, the Zephyrians watched as a group of large asteroids simply vanished from one location and appeared in another, thousands of kilometers away. Space folding technology, Rodriguez explained. We can move pretty much anything. Anywhere, as long as we have the right equipment positioned correctly. Admiral Kethver's tactical officer spoke up nervously. Sir, if they can move asteroids, they might be able to move our ships. Or move our ship's parts, Rodriguez added helpfully. Though that tends to be messy for the people inside. The Zephyrian admiral stared at his opponent. This wasn't how space battles were supposed to work. Where were the massive fleet formations? Where were the energy beam exchanges and torpedo volleys? Instead, he was facing humans who treated physics like a suggestion rather than a law. Admiral, Rodriguez continued, I think there's been a misunderstanding. You seem to think this is about military superiority. It's not. This is about capability. What do you mean? Your empire has ruled this sector for 3,000 years, using the same basic technology and tactics. You've gotten very good at conventional warfare. But humans don't do conventional warfare. As if to prove his point, one of the smaller human ships suddenly wasn't there anymore. It had vanished completely from all sensors. Where did it go? Admiral Kethver demanded. Everywhere and nowhere, Rodriguez replied. It's currently existing in 11 different dimensions simultaneously. Don't worry, it'll come back when we need it. The ship reappeared exactly where it had been, as if nothing had happened. Admiral, Rodriguez said, let me explain something about human warfare. We don't try to destroy our enemies. That's wasteful and inefficient. Instead, we make it clear that resistance is pointless. And how do you do that? Rodriguez gestured to someone off-screen. Karen, show them the construction project. Suddenly, the space around Admiral Kethver's fleet began to fill with activity. Massive human construction ships appeared from nowhere, along with mining vessels, factory ships, and transport craft. Within minutes, the Zephyrian fleet found itself surrounded by a growing industrial complex. What is this? Admiral Kethver asked. We're building a space station, Rodriguez explained. Should take about 6 hours to complete. It will have manufacturing facilities, defensive systems, and docking bays for about 50,000 ships. You're building this around our fleet? Well, You're in the construction zone, Rodriguez pointed out. We can work around you, but it might be easier if you move to a different orbit. Admiral Kethver watched in horror as human ships began assembling a structure that would dwarf anything the Zephian Empire had ever built. They weren't using prefabricated parts. They were manufacturing components in real time, using materials extracted from the system's asteroids. "How many ships do you have?" he asked. "In this system right now?" "About 400, Rodriguez replied, "though most of them are construction and support vessels. We only brought 5 military ships because we didn't expect any trouble." 400 ships? Our sensors only detected 5. Most of them were in folded space, Rodriguez explained. "We don't like to show our full capabilities unless it's necessary." Admiral Kethver looked at his tactical display. It now showed hundreds of human vessels appearing from nowhere as they joined the construction project. His 300 warships, which had seemed so impressive an hour ago, were now vastly outnumbered. "Captain Rodriguez," he said carefully, "what do you want?" "Nothing from you, Admiral. We just want to build our colony in peace. Your fleet is welcome to stay and watch, but please don't interfere with the construction work. And if we choose to attack," Rodriguez looked sad, "then we'd have to defend ourselves. Trust me, Admiral, you don't want to see what human defensive systems look like." As if summoned by his words, space around the human fleet shimmered. Massive defensive platforms materialized, bristling with weapons that defied easy classification. "Those are planet killers," Admiral Kethver's weapons officer whispered. "Each one has enough firepower to destroy a moon." "Actually," Rodriguez corrected, "those are mining tools. Our actual weapons are much more subtle." He paused, then added, "Admiral, may I offer you some advice? Go home. Tell your leaders that humanity claims this system not through conquest, but through the simple right of superior capability. We're not here to destroy your empire. We're here to build something new." Admiral Kethver stared at the growing human construction project. In 6 hours, they had built what would have taken the Zephyrian Empire 6 months to complete. And they had done it while casually demonstrating technologies that made his most advanced warships look like toys. "Retreat," he ordered quietly. "Sir?" His communications officer asked. "Signal the fleet. We're returning to base." As the Zephyrian fleet prepared to leave, Captain Rodriguez sent one final message. "Admiral, when you report to your superiors, please tell them something for me. Tell them that humanity doesn't want to rule the galaxy. We want to transform it. There's a difference." Admiral Kethver's fleet jumped to faster-than-light speed, leaving the Wolf 359 system to the humans. Behind them, the construction continued, turning empty space into a thriving hub of activity. For the first time in 3,000 years, a Zephyrian fleet had retreated without firing a shot. The emergency session of the Zephyrian Imperial Council had been going on for 12 hours. In the great crystal chamber on their homeworld, 50 of the Empire's most powerful leaders sat in stunned silence as they reviewed the reports from Wolf-359. Emperor Zexthal, ruler of the Zephyrian Empire for 2 centuries, looked older than his years. "Tell me again," he said to Supreme Admiral Kethvar, "how many human ships appeared in the system?" "Over 400, Your Majesty. They materialized from what they called folded space. Our best scientists don't even understand what that means." Across the galaxy, Captain Danny Foster sat in the same crystal chamber, but his presence there was different from every other alien species the Zephyrians had ever encountered. For 3,000 years, other races had come to this chamber as supplicants, begging for mercy or seeking permission. Danny was here as an equal. "Captain Foster," Emperor Zexthal said, "your people have demonstrated capabilities that we do not understand. We wish to discuss terms." Danny looked around the chamber with curious eyes. He was a tall man with black hair and an easy smile that somehow made the Zephyrian leaders more nervous than any threat could have. "Your Majesty," Danny said politely, "I think there might be some confusion about what humanity wants. We're not here to negotiate terms with your empire. We're here to explain what's going to happen next." "Explain?" one of the council members asked. "Yes, you see, humanity has been expanding through this region of space for 15 years. We've mapped every system, cataloged every planet, and identified the best locations for our colonies." The Fendel. Vol 359 demonstration was just us saying hello properly. Dr. Rachel Martinez, Danny's scientific advisor, stepped forward. She was a small woman with bright eyes who seemed to find everything fascinating. "Your Majesty," she said, "we've been studying your empire for a very long time. Your people are remarkable. You've maintained stable civilization for millennia, but you've also become very predictable." "Predictable how?" Emperor Zexthul asked. "You expect other species to think like you do. You assume everyone wants to conquer territory, rule populations, and build empires. But humans don't want any of those things." "Then what do you want?" Danny smiled. "We want to exist everywhere. We want to turn every habitable planet into a home. We want to build in every solar system. We want to explore every corner of the universe and make it better than it was when we found it." "That sounds like conquest to me," one of the council members said. "No," Dr. Martinez corrected. "Conquest implies taking something away from someone else. We're not taking anything from you. We're adding to what's already here." Emperor Zexthul leaned forward. "But surely you must want something from us." "Resources, technology, territory. We can make our own resources," Danny replied. "We can develop our own technology. And there's plenty of empty space for everyone." Dr. Martinez pulled up a holographic display showing the local region of the galaxy. "Your Majesty, the Zephyrian Empire occupies about 40 inhabited systems. There are over 10,000 systems in this sector alone. We're not interested in your 40 systems. We're interested in the other 9,960. "But you said you've been here for 15 years, Emperor Zexthul said. "Why didn't you contact us sooner?" Danny and Dr. Martinez exchanged a look. "Well," Danny said carefully, "we wanted to understand you first. Humans learned a long time ago that first impressions matter. If we had introduced ourselves 15 years ago, you might have seen us as a threat and tried to stop our expansion. And now? Now you understand that stopping us isn't really an option." The chamber fell silent. Emperor Zexthul realized what the human was saying. Everything that had happened, the diplomatic meetings, the demonstrations of technology, even this council session, had been carefully planned to lead to this moment. "Captain Foster," he said slowly, "are you telling me that your species has been manipulating us from the beginning?" "Not manipulating," Danny corrected. "Teaching. We've been showing you who we are and what we're capable of, piece by piece, so you could adjust to the new reality without panic." Fleet Admiral Gregory Phillips entered the chamber at that moment. He was an older man with gray hair and the kind of calm confidence that came from decades of command experience. "Your Majesty," Admiral Phillips said with a respectful bow, "I apologize for being late. We just finished establishing the colony in the Ross 128 system." "Ross 128? Emperor Zexthul asked. "That system is 300 light years from here." "Yes, sir. Beautiful planets there. We should have the terraforming completed within 2 years." Dr. Martinez spoke up. "Admiral Phillips commands our expansion fleets in this sector. He's responsible for about 60 new colonies in the past 5 years. 60 colonies," one of the council members whispered. "Actually, it's 63 as of today," Admiral Phillips corrected. "We've been quite busy." Emperor Zexthul stared at the human admiral. "How many colonies does humanity have in total?" In this sector, about 400 established colonies, with another 200 in development. Across all sectors, double quotes Admiral Phillips paused to think. I'd estimate around 15,000 colonies, give or take a few hundred. The Zephyrian Emperor felt dizzy. 15,000 colonies. Humans reproduce quickly and like to spread out, Danny explained. It's a survival instinct. We've learned that putting all our people in one place is dangerous. Dr. Martinez added, each colony becomes self-sufficient within a few years. They build their own ships, establish their own industries, and start looking for more places to expand. It's exponential growth. Your Majesty, Admiral Phillips said, I should mention that our long-range scouts have identified several other galactic sectors suitable for expansion. We'll probably begin operations there within the next decade. Other galaxies? Emperor Zexthal asked weakly. Oh no, sir. Other sectors of this galaxy. We're nowhere near ready for intergalactic expansion. That's probably still 50 years away. The Emperor looked around at his council members. They all had the same expression of shock and dawning realization. Captain Foster, he said, what does this mean for the Zephyrian Empire? It means you have new neighbors, Daddy replied. Very friendly neighbors who would like to establish good relations. We're not interested in ruling your people or taking your worlds. We just want to coexist peacefully while we continue expanding. And if we refuse? Danny looked genuinely confused. Refuse what, Your Majesty? We're not asking you for anything. We're simply informing you of what's already happening. Dr. Martinez spoke gently. Your Majesty, in the time we've been having this conversation, humanity has probably established 3 new colonies and sent out a dozen new exploration ships. This isn't something you can stop or slow down. It's just something you need to understand. Emperor Zexthal realized the truth. His empire hadn't encountered invaders or conquerors. They had encountered evolution itself, a species so successful at survival and expansion that they treated entire galaxies the way other species treated single planets. What happens now? He asked. Now we build the future together, Danny said, with his easy smile. Humans are very good at building things, Your Majesty. And we're always happy to teach our neighbors. Admiral Phillips checked his communication device. Captain Foster, I hate to interrupt, but we need to head to the Kepler sector. The colony ships have found something interesting. More habitable. Worlds? Danny asked. Better. They found a civilization that's been dead for about 10,000 years. The archaeologists want to study their technology before we start terraforming. Danny stood and bowed to Emperor Zexthal. Your Majesty, it's been an honor meeting you. I hope this is the beginning of a long friendship between our peoples. As the humans prepared to leave, Emperor Zexthal had one final question. Captain Foster, how long do you think it will take humanity to fill this entire galaxy? Danny paused at the chamber entrance and smiled. Your Majesty, we already have. The chamber fell silent as the humans left. Emperor Zexthal and his council sat in stunned silence, realizing that their 3,000-year reign as the dominant species in their sector had ended not with conquest or war, but with the simple arrival of neighbors who were so far beyond them that resistance was meaningless. Outside the chamber, Danny Foster looked up at the stars and smiled. Somewhere out there, Captain Jennifer Lopez was preparing her ship for the next unexplored sector, while thousands of other human captains were doing exactly the same thing. The galaxy was big, but humans were patient. And they had all the time in the universe.